The sun beat down on the dusty courtyard of my simple home, another day blurring into the next. I was grinding grains, my thoughts a bitter whirlwind of lack and want, my heart heavy with a familiar, gnawing jealousy. I watched my neighbor laugh across the way, and that familiar poison seeped into my veins. Why did her life seem so blessed while mine felt so ordinary? I was so lost in this toxic spiral that I almost didn't hear the faint, shuffling steps at my gate. An old man stood there, his frame frail, his clothes layered with the dust of a long, hard road. His eyes, however, held a depth that seemed to swallow the very light around them, ancient and knowing. A shiver, completely unrelated to the heat, traced its way down my spine. Something in his weary posture stirred a kindness I'd forgotten I possessed. Without a word, I hurried inside and fetched a clay cup filled with cool, clear water. My mind was still half caught on my own troubles, but the basic humanity in me took over. I offered it to him, my hands slightly trembling, not from fear, but from the strange, intense energy that seemed to radiate from his stillness. He drank slowly, savoring each sip as if it were the first water he'd ever tasted. Then he handed the cup back, and his cracked lips parted into a smile that didn't quite reach those bottomless eyes. His voice was a dry rustle, like autumn leaves scraping against stone. "Do you know who I am?" I shook my head, a sudden, cold apprehension tightening my throat. I took an involuntary step back, the warmth of the day doing nothing to fight the chill that now gripped me. He took a step forward, and the air itself grew still and heavy, as if the world were holding its breath. The birds fell silent. The distant sounds of the village faded into a thick, oppressive silence. It was just us, standing in that sun-drenched courtyard, a moment suspended outside of time itself. His next words landed not just on my ears, but in the very core of my soul, a death knell. "I am the angel of death. Today I have come for you." My heart stopped. The world tilted on its axis. The grinding stone, the scattered grains, the bright sun, it all melted into a meaningless blur. A scream lodged in my throat, trapped and silent. My body began to tremble uncontrollably, my knees threatening to buckle. This was it, the end. Every mistake, every jealous thought, every moment of anger flashed before my eyes in a devastating parade of regret. I wanted to beg, to plead, to run, but I was rooted to the spot, a prisoner of his terrifying gaze. I could only wait for the darkness to claim me. But then the faint smile returned to his ancient face. He spoke again, and his voice held a new, softer note, a sliver of light in the overwhelming darkness. "Your simple act of kindness, offering water without expectation, has moved me." He reached into the folds of his dusty robe, and my eyes were drawn to his movement, every sense heightened to a painful degree. He produced a book. It was bound in leather that seemed made of shadow, and it hummed with a low, potent energy I could feel from 3 paces away. "Therefore, I will grant you a chance no mortal has ever received." He extended the book toward me. I flinched, afraid to touch something that radiated such immense, otherworldly power. "Take it," he commanded, his voice leaving no room for refusal. With shaking, hesitant hands, I reached out. The moment my fingers brushed the cool, strange cover, a jolt like lightning shot up my arm. It was both terrifying and exhilarating. "Inside," he whispered, his voice now a direct echo in my mind, "you will find a page with your name. Whatever you write upon that page will become your truth, your new destiny." Time seemed to warp and slow. My fear was instantly drowned by a tidal wave of blinding, avaricious excitement. A chance to change everything. My mind raced with the possibilities, unimaginable wealth, a long life filled with joy, power, admiration. All my dreams, my deepest desires were suddenly within my grasp. I clutched the book to my chest, its energy thrumming against my frantic heartbeat. This was a miracle. This was my salvation. The angel of death simply watched, his expression unreadable, a silent sentinel waiting for me to decide my own fate. My trembling fingers pried open the cover. The pages were thin, almost like parchment, yet they felt incredibly strong and hummed with a faint golden light. I turned the first page, my breath catching in my throat. The script that glowed upon it was not written in any ink I knew. The words formed themselves clearly in my mind as I read them. "Your friend, Anya, will soon unearth a forgotten treasure chest buried in her field, a fortune in gold and jewels that will lift her family from poverty for generations to come." A hot, vicious spike of jealousy, sharper than any knife, lanced through my heart. Anya? Blessed again? While I had to beg for scraps? No, the thought was immediate and venomous. It wasn't fair. She didn't deserve such luck. Without a second thought, driven by a blinding, possessive rage, I snatched the stylus that was tucked into the book's binding. I scrawled over the beautiful glowing script, scratching it out with violent, jagged lines until it was utterly obliterated. In its place, I wrote my own dark decree. The treasure will vanish to dust the moment she touches it. She will get nothing. A cold satisfaction washed over me. It felt good, powerful. I had taken control. I eagerly turned to the next page, my initial fear and awe now completely replaced by a hungry greed. The next prophecy glowed. Your neighbor's husband, the humble blacksmith, will save the king's life during a royal hunt. As a reward, he will be appointed the royal high advisor, and his family will be honored throughout the land. Again, that bitter envy, that feeling of being left behind, curdled in my stomach. Why should they rise so high? My hand moved almost on its own, a slave to the green-eyed monster consuming me. I crossed out the glorious future with furious strokes, blotting out the light of the words. In its place, I inscribed a cruel fate, my heart pounding not with fear, but with a twisted sense of justice. His hammer will slip, and he will accidentally injure the king's favorite steed. For this failure, he will be thrown into the dungeons, and his family will be disgraced forever. I smiled, a thin, cruel thing. Let them suffer as I had. Page after page, I became a whirlwind of malice. I was no longer a woman, but a vessel of pure spite. Each turn of a page revealed another's joy, another's success, another's good fortune. A young couple would find true love. I wrote a bitter argument that would tear them apart. A farmer's crops would yield a miraculous bounty. I summoned a plague of locusts to devour them whole. The book's pages seemed to whisper to my darkest insecurities, fueling my rage, making my actions feel justified, even righteous. I was the architect of their misery. The world outside my courtyard ceased to exist. There was only the book, the pen, and the intoxicating power to diminish everyone who I felt had diminished me. The angel of death remained a silent statue in my periphery, but I barely noticed him anymore. His warning was a distant echo, drowned out by the roaring in my ears and the satisfying scratch of the pen as I rewrote reality to suit my wounded ego. I was a god, dispensing punishment and lack, and it felt exhilarating. My fingers were now stained with a strange dark residue from the pen, but I didn't care. I was getting closer to the center of the book, driven by the singular burning need to find my page. My page. That was all that mattered. The others were merely obstacles to be cleared, problems to be solved. I had to erase their light so that mine could shine all the brighter. My future would be so magnificent that it would eclipse all of their collective sufferings. That was the thought that fueled my frantic, desperate search. And then I saw it, my name. It glowed with a soft, ethereal light, a gentle pulsing that was entirely different from the harsh glare of the other pages. This light was meant for me. A wave of overwhelming relief and triumph washed over me. I had made it. I had cleared the path. Here it was, my blank canvas, my ultimate reward. I stared at the beautiful empty space below my name, my mind finally freeing itself from the poison of jealousy to focus on my own glorious future. What would I choose? What did I truly want? My mind exploded with possibilities. Infinite wealth, of course. A palace of gold and marble. A life stretching centuries, filled with unwavering health and youth. The adoration of millions. The power to command kings and nations. The pen hovered over the pristine page. I took a deep, shaking breath, wanting to choose perfectly, to craft the most magnificent sentence ever written. This was my moment. This was my destiny. I would write the most perfect, wonderful, incredible future any human had ever dreamed of. I smiled, a true smile for the first time, and began to lower the pen. A movement, a blur of darkness, a gust of wind that felt like winter's final breath. The book was gone, snatched from my grasp with such impossible speed that for a second my hand still hovered in the air, frozen in the act of writing. I blinked, stunned, my mind unable to process the emptiness where the book had been. I looked up. The angel of death held the book closed, his fingers resting on the cover as if it had never left his possession. His patient, silent observation had ended. Time, His voice boomed, not in the air, but inside my very skull, a thunderclap of finality that shook me to my bones. "Is over." I stared, dumbfounded, my mouth agape. No, this couldn't be happening. Not now, not when I was so close. "But my page," I stammered, the words a pathetic whisper. I didn't write anything yet." My voice rose into a desperate plea. He had to understand. He had to give me just one more second. His deep voice thundered again, filled with a disdain that crushed my soul. "You wasted your entire gift. You filled eternity with harm for others, but not a single letter of good for yourself. You were given a blank page, and you chose to fill it only with the blackness of your own envy." The truth of his words hit me with the force of a physical blow. I had been so busy destroying others that I had forgotten to build myself. I had written my own damnation. "This," he said, his eyes holding not anger, but a profound, devastating pity, "is the greatest tragedy of mankind." I cried out then, a raw, guttural sound of pure, absolute regret. It was a sound that held every missed chance, every bitter thought, every moment of kindness I had ever withheld. It was too late. The courtyard, the sun, the world, it all began to fade, dissolving into gray nothingness. The last thing I saw was his unwavering gaze. The last thing I felt was an emptiness vaster than any universe. I had my chance, I had the pen in my hand, and I wrote nothing but darkness.